All right.
We're live.
We're live. Okay, we're back with a really short video here on something that I've been wanting to cover, which is dissociation versus association, distancing. It's all kind of very confusing, especially in the EFT world. Mm-hmm. So we're doing these short videos. They are a little promotional for our Art of Delivery online course, which we've been teaching now online for this will be our second year. So popular that we brought it back this summer. And basically our feeling is that before you set out to add a whole bunch of new tools to your toolkit, why not try mastering the ones that you already have? Because it really is our feeling that very few people have actually mastered their EFT toolkit.
Yeah, and they get used to the techniques that they do, and they keep doing them.
Yeah, and sometimes not correctly.
And sometimes not correctly. Or not as effective.
Or not
as effectively as it could be.
Yeah. So this is all about understanding them at a deeper level so that you understand how brilliant they are. And now that I've just been reminded I got to make this short because my phone is dying. So let's make this jam-packed with material. So the note that I had was I was thinking about this, like, you know how you have your computer and there's something that's going wrong in your computer?
I do.
And the tech people will tell you, user error, right? So you think, if I add more tools, or if I add more techniques, if I try the latest tapping Shazam technique, then that will get it. Yeah, it's user error. So we're trying to really help you get better. It's really the goal here. So
let's break it down a few things. Here, one thing I want to say is a trauma-informed approach to tapping is about being safe. It's always being aware that, you know what? It's like somebody saying, I want to do EFT, I want to do tapping, but I don't want to work with trauma.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That ain't going to happen.
Good luck with that one.
And because when somebody walks in, you have zero idea if what is manifesting in their life is procrastination, is anxiety, is stress, etc., is related to earlier trauma, you can always land in trauma. Exactly. Therefore, you always have to approach it as if you're going to expect that that's going to show up. So how do you enact all the techniques we're doing in the safest way, which means the gentlest way? Right?
That are still highly effective.
Yes.
And there was a quote from one of these newfangled people out there doing stuff that is not trauma informed. This is the quote: "You have to feel it to heal it." And we're here to say that the research actually shows that you've got to feel safe to heal.
Yeah.
Period.
Now, that means, so let's just talk a little bit about, some of the terms that you started off with.
Oh, yeah, because there's confusion, so much confusion.
So most people, when we're doing basic EFT, right, the stuff that you see out there on most YouTube land, etc.
Well,
actually, you're right that. I'm going to say basic EFT is the technique that you see the most. Not necessarily that it's done well, though.
Okay. So I'm going to correct you. The most EFT that you see out there in YouTube land and elsewhere and tap along videos is not basic EFT.
All right.
It is tapping light, L-I-T-E. The real foundational technique is the basic recipe shortcut. So now that I've corrected you,
because people have varied it and made and given it their twists and turns and versions that really have strayed from where it began with Gold Standard and Gary's work, etc.
But let's talk about let's because we need to really tighten this. Let's assume that people understand basic EFT.
Great. Okay.
And let's assume that people really understand that there are some techniques that are to be done with big T traumas.
Right. But when we go from basic EFT, when we go from basic EFT, it is all about associating. It's about connecting with what you feel.
It's about gentle exposure, bringing things up to the light.
And being connected to, what am I feeling? What is the emotion? Where do I feel it? How do I feel that in my body? That's all associating and integrating and connecting, because at that moment it's safe enough The person is stable enough, the person is regulated enough to be able to connect with those things without going into a meltdown.
Exactly. Right? And so associating is even though I feel this way about a future event, about right now, or about a past event. Right. That's what it sounds like when you're associating. But let's go to dissociating versus, let's just even start with a basic distancing versus dissociating, because there's a UK American thing going on. It's not just UK.
So it's so distancing is basically, how are we gently keeping a distance between me and the trauma? How do I still stay connected to it? So I'm getting information, but I'm doing it gently and from a distance. So when we look to a variety of techniques, when we look at tell the story and movie technique, for example, and we're viewing the words, we're viewing the name of the movie, we're viewing the scene from a distance onto a screen.
Right.
All of these are keeping me from some distance so I don't go into emotional flooding, abreaction, etc. When we ask, for example, having somebody guess at the SUDS intensity.
These are all ways of distancing. But I wanted to first with the verbiage here. In the UK and in Europe, let's just say Europe and other places, they call this sort of thing that we're talking about dissociating. And in America, American English, I know we do not speak the Queen's English at all. We just bastardize it. But from where we stand, if we were to tell our licensed mental health care professionals that we train, we're going to dissociate from that to keep it gentle, they're all looking at us like, what?
No, dissociation basically is moving towards a pathological entity.
Exactly.
When somebody is, because of a trauma, so separate that they actually can't feel, and it's moving toward diagnostic condition.
Exactly.
So when we're looking at that, we understand that many people use the word dissociating, but we use the word distancing as a safer way to do that.
Exactly.
And we know that there are shades of gray with this. So when somebody's in a state when they, because of a trauma, go numb more easily, or can't feel their body as easily, or they feel like in a session that they're jumping out of their body, we'll call these shades of gray of moving towards dissociation.
Sure.
But it's not a dissociated state.
But it also might be, like you said, that someone has a trauma history, or that what you're going to work on is an actual trauma capsule or a dissociation capsule we'll talk about a little bit. But it also could be that the person is not a kinesthetic processor. And so the mistake people make is they insist that the client has to feel it. Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it? And I've actually heard reports of practitioners saying things like, well, there's something wrong with you, or implying or inferring that there's something wrong with their client because they can't feel it in their body. Right. And if a practitioner tells you that, know that that practitioner is not trauma informed, period.
Because the person may not feel safe enough to go into their body to feel those things. It's not that there's anything wrong with them.
Not consciously.
Exactly.
But also might not be a kinesthetic processor at all. Mm-hmm. I've had that.
Yeah.
Okay, so just because, and then the opposite of that. So the opposite of that is when you feel that there's the sign that you have that you aren't, that it's not a big trauma for you, or the sign that you think, oh, that's not a big trauma for them, is when a person is able to tell you the story without breaking down. And you feel like, oh, must not be something to work on. So there are small indicators and even micro indicators that someone has not healed or thoroughly processed that trauma. We're talking about big T traumas. And now taking Craig and Suzanne's course, Tapping Out of Trauma, which I highly recommend, like I can spot someone, like I spotted someone talking about the worst trauma they had ever had in their life on stage and going, yeah, they're not done. They're not done processing that trauma. I saw the trauma pull. I saw all kinds of things happening in there. And sitting with somebody that has studied trauma for like 30 years, like Suzanne, man, she's able to like, you saw that? You saw that little, and I'm like, yes, I see it. So what I'm trying to say is that's all indicators of the trauma pull, the dissociation capsule. In the trainings, we might call that a trauma capsule, and that is where there's a big T trauma, and the brain processes it differently, and the person doesn't really feel it.
That's true. I mean, I always act as if underneath it is a potential trauma. So for me, it's always about safety. It's always about rapport. It's always about greater safety. And this also shows up where sometimes practitioners get frustrated with their clients because they feel like they're not processing, they're not going there, they're not revealing.
Right.
And remember, I love Suzanne's quote is we should only be going as fast as the slowest part of us feels safe to go. And so working with clients, some will take a long time to work with something, some will take a shorter time, some have done more work. So again, it's all about safety. And the brilliance of so many of the EFT techniques when done well from a trauma-informed approach is how do we work safer, how do we work gently, and how do we create and use distancing techniques and distancing nuances in all of the techniques.
Right.
When do we need to switch techniques? When do we need to take one technique and provide even more distancing quality to it?
Right.
So,
so we always teach to assume that some level of distancing is going to be needed when you are working on a big T trauma. And we're actually not going to be able to cover the distinction between what makes a big T and a small T in this.
No.
Because it's a huge topic and people don't get that right.
But also, one of the things I also don't see is people understanding why and when to use the gentle techniques versus the trauma techniques.
Yes.
When do you use tell the story, and why would you use box container? Why would you use tearless trauma? Why would you use sneaking up with regard to a trauma to be able to have a gentler emotionally regulation gateway before you jumped into processing a trauma? All of these things, don't get covered so well in a level 1, 2, or at least maybe they do, but you're hearing so much information in a first level 1 and 2 training that you don't catch all the nuances.
Right. So dissociating and dissociation, distancing, we use those to lesser and more degrees depending on, is it just a little bit of that we need because we're applying a gentle technique to start the process, or are we engaging in it full on in the big T trauma techniques like Craig mentioned, tell a story, or movie technique, or matrix reimprinting actually too. What?
Nothing.
I'm thinking. There was something I wanted to say, and you going like this made me forget it.
Okay.
So there's something else. So the gentle techniques are employed as a way in. When you're really working with it, you're working and actively engaging. Oh, here's the thing. You're still trying to get to specific events. I know you hate me. Like I'm like a bug in your ear, like telling you this 24/7. My mentees out there, our goal is to get to specific events, and many times the there are ways of doing some distancing by being a bit more global,
right?
But your target
is to get specific.
Exactly.
Sure, you can temporarily go global, but I find a lot of people go global just because they don't know how to gently ask open-ended questions to get specific, and then you end up in the global swamp. And then they get emotionally flooded and overwhelmed because there's too much trauma there, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a snippet. Right?
Yeah,
it's a quick snippet. We cover a lot more in the art of delivery, and we'll keep putting this kind of content out there. We know that it's useful, but again, it's not nearly as in-depth. But hopefully you got some great tips just from this.
Right, and to recap, the idea that you have to feel it to heal it is BS. It's not trauma-informed care, and absolutely 100% true, and it's validated by science, is healing doesn't happen unless there's safety. And you have actually good personal experience of that.
I do.
Like trying to heal and not feeling safe enough. to actually heal completely. So
I do, but that's not really today's topic.
Okay.
So, for another one. So if you want to find out information about the art of delivery, just go to EFTtappingtraining.com and you'll see it on the front page. And we start in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. July.
Yeah, in the middle of July.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.